For 3 years, I dedicated myself to pursuing Clara. For 3 years, she led me on, a game of cat and mouse where I was perpetually the mouse. Her standards were a constantly moving target I could never hit. Her challenges a series of exams I was doomed to fail. In the end, my failure was absolute. There was nothing left for me to do but sit and await my erasure at the hands of the system that had governed my every move. But instead of oblivion, the system offered something else entirely. Its voice, usually a cold, indifferent presence in my mind, shifted. "I am the heiress of the system clan," it declared, "the crowned princess of the cheat code world. As such, I can grant you a single wish." I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it. So, with a humor born of despair, I made my request. "If you're really that powerful," I said, "then give Clara a system of her own, and make me her sole objective." To my utter astonishment, the system agreed without hesitation. But then came the caveat, a warning delivered in its newly regal tone. "Be aware," it said, "if she fails in her mission to win your affection, she will be the one who is erased. Are you certain this is what you want?" Was I certain? The question was laughable. There was nothing I wanted more. Tonight was the night of her engagement party, a celebration of her union with her perfect man, Julian. I remembered once telling Clara, in a moment of bleak, half-hearted humor, "If you don't end up with me, I think I might just die. What would you do then?" She hadn't even looked up from whatever she was doing. Her dismissal, casual and swift. "Leo, don't say things like that." Tonight was also the night my own mission was officially declared a failure. I was sitting on a desolate rooftop, the sprawling city lights a glittering tapestry below, when the system's formal announcement echoed in my mind. "Host, you're not contemplating jumping, are you?" The voice was laced with an uncharacteristic anxiety that, strangely, brought me a sliver of comfort. "How could I?" I chuckled, shaking my head. "Now that you've declared my failure, I actually feel a sense of relief. I don't have to spend my days and nights catering to a woman's every whim, only to watch her fall into another man's arms. Even if the price for this freedom is my own demise." I gazed down at the endless stream of traffic, a river of red and white lights, and tried to imagine the final countdown of my life. "When are you planning on erasing me?" I asked. "Look at all those lights down there. So much brightness, and yet not a single one can show me the way forward." "Host, do you truly wish to die?" it asked, its voice softer now. It was speaking more tonight than it had in the past 3 years combined. Did I want to die? If that were the case, I would have abandoned this impossible mission long ago. The truth was, I had been fighting with everything I had just to stay alive. If you had one final day to live, what would you choose to do? I had always affectionately called my system Missy. Her voice was typically gentle, yet the words she delivered were often carriers of despair. "If that were the case," I mused, "I'd want to go see the ocean, and I'd want to lose myself in it just for a little while." And that is precisely what I did. The early June water was still shockingly cold, but I didn't care. I set my phone down, shrugged off my jacket, and plunged into the bracing waves. I've always loved the ocean, the profound sense of freedom that comes with being weightless in the water. But Clara, due to a childhood trauma, had always been terrified of it, so trips to the seaside were a rarity in our time together. The beach was mostly empty, and certainly no one else was behaving with my level of wild abandon. Standing on the shore, I screamed at the vast, roaring sea, "Grant the wish! Grant the death of the toxic girl! All of you grant it!" I was vaguely aware of someone nearby holding up their phone, likely filming my manic display. Honestly, what did it matter? I was a dead man, walking. When death is imminent, even the concept of shame becomes meaningless. After I had exhausted myself swimming, I dragged myself out of the water and was immediately racked by a series of powerful sneezes. I even managed a joke to the system. "Missy, what do you think? Maybe you could let me go out with a case of meningitis from this little stunt?" The system remained silent for a long moment. "But do me one favor," I continued, my teeth chattering. "Let me die with some dignity. Give me enough time to clear the browser history on my phone and my laptop before the end." I had never realized I could be so talkative. I suppose the system hadn't either. Suddenly, its voice returned, firm and clear. "You are not going to die." "What?" I was so startled that I nearly tripped while trying to pull on my pants. "Host, were you not aware? I am the heiress of the system-crowned princess of the cheat code world. How about I grant you one wish? I laughed, convinced it was a joke. Since when did your humor stats get so high? I quipped. All right then. How about this, give Clara a system and make me her mission objective? The response came instantly, a sound like a digital lock clicking into place. Okay, binding complete. I stood there, dumbfounded. You're serious? I asked, a knot of disbelief tightening in my stomach. Of course I am, the system replied. Immediate regret washed over me. Can I take it back? That wish feels like a complete waste. Nope, she responded coolly. Once granted, a wish is non-refundable. I was left speechless. Still, it was better than being erased. That night, a fever took hold of me. As my temperature soared, I thought I saw my great-grandmother beckoning to me from the foot of the bed. My dreams were a relentless montage of the 3 years I had spent chasing Clara. There was the time she mentioned a craving for spicy chicken feet from a shop in the South District, and I drove halfway across the city to fetch them, only to find her sharing a meal with Julian. He had smiled at me, a dismissive, patronizing smile, and said, "Thanks for the effort," before sending me away like a delivery boy. There were the countless nights she would call me, drunk, from a club, and I would carry her up 6 flights of stairs, my muscles screaming in protest, only for her to murmur with a faint smile, "Leo, I just couldn't stand to see Julian work so hard." She would drop just enough hints to keep hope alive, but whenever I gathered the courage to confess my feelings, she would deftly change the subject. The next day, the fever broke. I sat up, sniffling, and a profound realization dawned on me I was still alive. I pulled open the curtains of the hotel room, revealing a floor-to-ceiling window that looked out onto a panorama of brilliant sunlight and sparkling sea. It felt like a rebirth. "Missy," I asked, still harboring a sliver of doubt, "are you truly not going to erase me?" The system answered with an air of haughtiness. "You are fortunate to have me as your guide, the crowned princess of the system world." A moment of silence passed before she continued. "But she is not as lucky as you are. If she does not succeed in winning you over, she will be erased. So Leo, can you bear to watch that happen?" Before I even had a chance to contemplate whether I could bear it or not, my little seaside meltdown had already become an internet sensation. The headline, "Young Master of the Chen Family Heartbroken, Attempts Suicide by Drowning," left me utterly speechless. In the video, I looked euphoric, not suicidal, but the accompanying article painted a much more dramatic picture, claiming I had peacefully embraced death. I had no choice but to go online and set the record straight. I'm not dead. I am alive and well. To further dispel the suicide rumors, I added, wasn't trying to die, just having some fun in the ocean. And yet, it was the clip of me screaming at the top of my lungs, "Grant the wish! Grant the death of the toxic ex! All of you, grant it!" that truly went viral. The comment section became a unified chorus of 2 words, repeated endlessly, "Grant it." It became so popular it was almost embarrassing. It wasn't long before my phone rang. It was Clara. "You went to the seaside?" she asked, her voice cautious. "Yeah," I replied. "Yeah, I went to the seaside to curse you out." I added silently in my head. "Are you on vacation?" "Just here to pick some oysters," I said. "Here to curse you out," my mind repeated. She hesitated for a beat before asking, "Can you come back?" "Sure," I said, and I could almost hear the sigh of relief on the other end of the line. Then I added, "Yeah, right, like hell I'm coming back," and hung up the phone. A wave of deep satisfaction washed over me. Only then did I remember to ask the system, "You said you gave her a system? Is it active now?" "It's bound," the system answered. The binding was completed right as they were cutting the engagement cake. This system of mine, I thought, certainly had a flair for the dramatic. Even with a strategy system guiding her, I imagined Clara thought this mission would be a walk in the park. In her eyes, I was nothing more than a shameless devotee who would come running at her beck and call. But given how deeply she seemed to care for Julian, I wondered what her strategy would be. Would she break up with him? Or would she attempt the delicate balancing act of keeping both of us on the line? Is her condition for success the same as mine was? I asked the system. Does she just need to get engaged to me? If that was the case, I could understand her confidence. Yes, the system replied. As long as the two of you become engaged, she will survive. Host, doesn't that sound simple? Simple, and yet not simple at all. If it were truly that easy, I wouldn't have been facing elimination myself. My relationship with Clara had felt more like a contractual obligation than a romance. And from her perspective, I was utterly disposable, someone to be summoned and dismissed at her convenience. To be honest, I had long since stopped wanting anything from her. When Clara's call came, I was still sound asleep in the king-size bed of the hotel. "Are you sleeping?" she asked. She rarely called unless she needed a favor. The previous night, I had sat by the ocean with a bottle of whiskey, feeling the sea breeze on my face, and that kind of reckless freedom was intoxicating. Being woken up so early left me with a splitting headache and a foul mood. I hung up on her. When she called back, I simply turned my phone off. A few minutes later, there was a sharp knocking at my door. "Leo, open up! I know you're in there." Damn it. They had just gotten engaged, and she had already tracked me down. Then again, it made sense. Her survival was on the line. I opened the door. Her face, initially lit with joy, fell as her gaze dropped. Her cheeks flushed. "Could you at least put some pants on?" she said. Only then did I realize I had rushed to the door wearing nothing but a t-shirt. I frowned, about to say something, when a woman's voice drifted from behind me. "Leo, honey, who's bothering us so early?" I spun around. A young woman in a camisole nightdress, with clearly nothing underneath, emerged from the other room, rubbing her hair sleepily. I couldn't help but glance back at Clara. Her expression was thunderous. She grabbed my arm, her voice shaking with fury. "Leo, what in the world is going on? Aren't you going to explain yourself?" Hell, I wanted to know what was going on too. I had literally just woken up. But seeing Clara's rage, an unexpected laugh bubbled up inside me. "Miss Lou," I said, using her formal surname, "what you see is exactly what's happening, and this is my private life. I don't believe I owe you any explanation at all." In the end, it was I who asked Clara to leave. Watching her storm away, huffing and puffing with indignation, was genuinely amusing. "All right," I said, turning to the woman in my room as I got dressed. "You can start explaining where you came from." I motioned for her to cover herself up as well. She adopted a delicate, pinched voice. "Leo, how could you have forgotten me?" Her performance as a pretentious coquette, trying to appear fragile and wronged, was almost impressive. Her eyes welled with tears. "Last night, you forced me to come in here." I looked at her, my face a blank mask. "Are you trying to scam me?" She blinked, then dropped the act entirely. "Okay, fine, Leo. I'll tell you the truth." She said her name was Isabel, and added with a pout, "I'll admit it, I came with you willingly last night. You didn't even touch me, happy now?" She pointed at her dress, which was still damp. "It's been hours, and my dress is still not dry, haven't you noticed? Leo, if I get sick from this, you'd better take responsibility." Now, she wasn't just a coquette, she was a clinger. "Did I throw up on you?" I asked. She immediately launched into a litany of complaints. "Not only did you throw up on me, you got it all over yourself too. Then you had the audacity to claim I was the one who puked on you, and you even made me wash your clothes." I mentally summoned the system and, to my shock, realized she was telling the truth. Too much alcohol really does turn your brain to mush. "You washed all my clothes?" I asked, a pang of guilt beginning to surface. "Leo," she said, holding up her hands, "I have never met a man who treats a woman so poorly. Do you know what these hands are normally used for? Not doing laundry. But you stood right there and supervised me, telling me that if I didn't wash them properly, I couldn't go to sleep." She did sound genuinely wrong. I rubbed my temples. "All right, that's enough. Last night was my fault. I'll give you some money as compensation. Just go." I had more important matters to attend to. Someone like Clara wouldn't give up so easily. Sure enough, after I had pulled myself together and gone downstairs, she was waiting for me in the lobby. Still projecting that untouchable princess aura, she gave a cold snort. "Leo, from this moment on, you are forbidden from seeing that woman again." "Miss Lou," I asked, "what business is it of yours?" "Leo, I'll forgive you this one time," she said. "But I hope there won't be a next time." I laughed. "Miss Lou, have you forgotten? You're an engaged woman now." I looked at her as if I couldn't believe her audacity. "Perhaps your memory isn't what it used to be. You even forgot to call your fiancé to come and pick you up." But don't worry, I've already notified Mr. Fiancé Sokam. Ito for you. I didn't miss the look of pure shock that washed over her face. As I turned to leave, I added, Miss Liu, there's something I've been meaning to tell you for a while. I hope that by the time I return, I won't have to see you here. Honestly, after 3 years, Clara should have understood my personality by now. When I saw her waiting in the hotel lobby clutching a lunchbox, I had immediately sent Julian my location. From the landing of the staircase, I watched as he berated her face a mask of shame. She clutched his arm, apologizing profusely and wiping tears from her eyes. I couldn't hear their conversation clearly, only fragments, but I did catch one thing. Clara, choking back a sob, saying, Julian, you know I only love you. We just need to endure this for a little longer. One of them loved with passion, the other with restraint. And then there was me, an outsider caught in their drama, yet completely disconnected from it. I had no idea what Clara told him, but in the end, Julian gave a hesitant nod. I watched as he playfully tapped the tip of her nose, and she broke into a smile through her tears, throwing herself into his arms. I knew it. Julian's the best, she said. I was starting to find the whole situation morbidly entertaining. I stepped out into the open, and seeing them in their loving embrace, I offered a cheerful greeting. You two got engaged, right? I never had the chance to congratulate you. Clara quickly pulled away from Julian, attempting an explanation. We were just... I cut her off. I had no interest in hearing it. I turned to Julian and said, Mr. Ito, you can stop sending me those pictures. Let's stick to our previous agreement. I'll resign and leave Clara alone. I had said the same thing to him once before, back before their engagement when he had come to confront and intimidate me. He probably never expected me to repeat it now, especially not in front of her. His face was a canvas of hesitation, unsure how to respond. I looked directly at Clara. Miss Liu, I've worked at Liu Corporation for 3 years, and I'm grateful for the opportunities the company has given me. I have already submitted my resignation letter to your father and to the HR department. I won't disturb your date any longer. Sure, the Chen Corporation had gone bankrupt, and I, a former heir, was left with nothing. But that didn't mean I had to survive by clinging to others. If it weren't for the system's mission, I never would have stayed at Liu Corporation in the first place. Leaving someone seems impossible until you make the decision, and then it's surprisingly easy to let go. Just as I was about to walk away, Clara grabbed my arm. I turned to look at her, and perhaps the undisguised look of disgust on my face surprised her, because she suddenly demanded, Who gave you the right to just resign like that? As we struggled, Isabel, the woman from my room, suddenly reappeared. She didn't waste a single moment. With one sentence, she rescued me from the awkward standoff. Leo, I've been waiting for you for a long time. It was as if she knew I wouldn't contradict her in that moment. She slipped her arm through mine and said, Let's go. I looked at her but didn't reciprocate the gesture. My expression was flat as I asked, Why are you acting so familiar? Are we that close? After we had walked away, I suddenly heard the system's voice in my ear. Host, doesn't it feel good to act like this? After being devoted to her for so many years, I had finally grown a spine. I chuckled. System Missy, I owe it all to you. And for the first time I heard the system let out a soft, lilting laugh. I had to admit it was a pleasant sound. I left without a single backward glance. The system's voice returned, a hint of hesitation in its tone. That girl just now wasn't so bad, was she? Don't tell me. Aside from Clara, you're incapable of liking anyone else? Don't be ridiculous, I replied. I'm just enjoying my freedom. After all this time, I'm finally done being a doormat. Why would I go looking for trouble with another woman? Then a funny thought occurred to me. Do you share my senses? Like my vision, for example? No, host, I do not share your senses, she replied. But my field of view is locked to your immediate vicinity. That's good enough. I nodded. I breathed in the fresh sea air. After playing it safe for so long, you're the one who taught me that sometimes a person just needs to let loose. My dear system, Missy was about to have a meltdown. Wait, you're not seriously going to do this, are you? Can we please talk this over? I have a terrible fear of heights. I can send you a gorgeous woman instead. Please, just cancel this dangerous activity. Haven't you been reading the news? These bungee cords can snap. Help me. I was speechless. Yes, I had decided to go bungee jumping. My legs were shaking a bit before the leap, but the feeling afterward was one of complete and total rebirth. The system was silent for a long time. "Did I scare you?" I asked, a sliver of guilt creeping in. She tried to sound tough. "Me? Scared? Please, I am not that kind of system." I grinned. "Want to go again?" Her voice trembled as she replied, "Please, I'm begging you. Go flirt with someone, that's fine, but please don't do this again. Please." All I did was go bungee jumping once, but it became fodder for the tabloids. The media painted a vivid, dramatic picture. If I hadn't been the one at the center of it, even I might have believed their story. They claimed I had suffered a mental breakdown after running into Clara and Julian on vacation and had chosen to risk my life as a result. At least they didn't claim I had tied a rope to myself and jumped off a building over a broken heart. Right then and there, I made a decision. I announced that I would be holding an open interview. I took my time preparing, only to find the journalists were far sharper than I had anticipated. But I had an ultimate weapon: honesty. I answered every single question truthfully. I said outright that yes, I had loved Clara. Once. One reporter asked, "Mr. Chen, is it true that you met Miss Liu before her fiancé did? That you've known her for longer?" I nodded with a calm smile. "Yes, I've known her for exactly 3 years and 1 month." Another asked, "Is it true that you pursued Miss Liu for a long time?" "It wasn't that long," I replied. "Just 3 years." My placid response seemed to surprise the room. Then came another pointed question. "So why didn't she choose you in the end? Do you feel any regret?" I smiled and looked directly into the camera lens. She had every right not to choose me. People have the freedom to choose, and with that freedom comes the responsibility for the consequences of those choices. As for regret, not really. I sincerely wish them a long and happy life together. Another journalist pressed on. "We heard that you once took the fall for Miss Liu at a drinking party and ended up in the hospital. Are you certain you're really over her?" "People need to learn when to let go," I said. "Recognizing reality and cutting your losses is a sign of strength. The reason I'm doing this interview today is to officially say goodbye to the past. If I'm lucky, I hope to meet someone in the future who is truly worth cherishing." But just when I thought I had navigated the press conference with poise, a reporter fired one last shot. "Mr. Chen, if you've really let go, then why were you seen yelling on the beach like a man possessed?" I looked up at her and asked, "Let me ask you this, if you had just gone through a breakup, would shouting at the ocean be a crime?" My honesty made the entire interview go surprisingly well. But just after it ended, as I was approaching the alley near my hotel, a speeding car seemed to come out of nowhere and struck me. The world went black instantly. In the dream that followed, I relived countless moments from my years of devotion to Clara. It was deeply humiliating. And in that dream, the system's voice came to me, clear and direct. "When you wake up, pretend you have no memory of anyone." I wanted to ask her why, but she said nothing more. I must have been unconscious for a long time. When I finally opened my eyes, the first thing I saw was Clara's face. She looked utterly exhausted, as if she hadn't slept in days. I opened my mouth to speak, but she grabbed my hand, her voice filled with excitement. "Leo, you're finally awake!" Then I remembered the system's instruction. I quickly pulled my hand away. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice raspy. "Why am I here?" Nurses bustled in and out of the room. Clara's face seemed to freeze. She asked cautiously if I remembered who she was. I shook my head. And so, with a calm composure that belied the situation, she chose to lie. "I'm your wife," she said. If it had been anyone else, waking up with amnesia in a confusing hospital room and seeing a beautiful woman dressed in designer clothes claiming to be their wife, they probably would have believed it. What, after all, could a wealthy heiress possibly want from them? But the fact remained she was lying. "Are we married?" I asked bluntly. Missy's voice whispered in my ear. Host, you sound a little too eager there, tone it down." Clara's response was slightly unexpected. "We're just boyfriend and girlfriend for now," she said. "We're not married yet." "Oh," I said, patting my chest dramatically. "Well, that's a relief." I enunciated each word slowly and clearly. "Let me tell you, marriage is a grave you don't just leap into." Clara was speechless for a moment. She pressed her lips together. "Leo, even though we're not married, I already accepted your proposal. It's just a matter of time. I was so scared when you got into that car accident." Just then, I noticed someone else barging through the doorway, and a smile spread across my face. "Well then, my dear girlfriend," I said, looking at Clara. "I'm in terrible pain right now. How about a kiss to make it all better?" The person at the door froze, looking as if he wanted to say something but was holding himself back. Clara hesitated, but eventually leaned in closer. The moment she sensed the presence behind her, she tried to turn, but I pulled her firmly into my arms. "My love," I said with a grin, "have we been fighting lately? You seem so reluctant to be close to me." Clara gave up resisting. As if surrendering, she closed her eyes and waited for my kiss. To me, however, the prospect felt as appealing as chewing on wax. I pushed her away and pointed to the man standing behind her. "My dear girlfriend, don't you think you owe me an explanation?" "Who is he?" Pulling a power move like this was something my system would probably have orchestrated even more flawlessly. Even though I could clearly see the fury etched onto Julian's face, Clara had to survive. And to survive, she had no choice but to play along. "Who is he?" I had heard that exact phrase before, from Julian's own mouth. It had been on the day I had planned to officially confess my feelings to Clara. She had agreed to meet me and give me a final answer. I had made a reservation and prepared a surprise. But just as the atmosphere turned romantic, she had opened the door and two people had walked in. That was the first time I had ever seen Julian. I still remembered the way he had frowned and questioned my presence, his arrogant tone echoing in my mind. It was only later that I discovered he was Clara's one true love. Back then, Clara had explained, "He's just a colleague from work. I think he misunderstood our relationship." And now, she was using the exact same line. "He's just a colleague." She pressed her lips together and added, "He's your subordinate. He came to check on you." "Is that so?" I asked. I listened to her explanation with a face full of theatrical doubt. This guy has the shadiest looking face I've ever seen. I disliked him the moment I laid eyes on him. Fire him. It's not that I enjoy playing the part of some villainous character, but when Clara was the one inflicting pain, she never showed an ounce of remorse. I once drank so much on her behalf that I ended up in the hospital vomiting blood. And what did she do? She called me to say her best friend was going through a breakup and needed comforting, so she couldn't make it. She told me to rest well. The very next day, I saw a tabloid article online. She was on vacation by the sea with Julian. Incidents like that happened far too many times to count. It happened so often that I once asked the system, "Missy, if I didn't have this mission, would I still be subjecting myself to this?" But I wasn't really asking a question. I was trying to convince myself that my actions had a purpose. When my stomach was burning in pain, I was alone. When I was lying helpless in a hospital bed, I was alone. In the dead of night, when the world was silent, I would talk to the system. Most of the time, it was a one-sided conversation where I spoke, and she simply listened. Looking at Julian's barely concealed rage and Clara's conflicted expression, I suddenly smiled. All right, I'm just kidding. He's such a dedicated employee, how could I possibly judge him by his appearance and fire him?" I then turned to Julian with a grin. "Seriously though, true friends show up in times of need. Thanks for thinking of me. You should come over to our place sometime, have your sister-in-law cook up some of her best dishes. We'll share a drink or two." The phrase, "your sister-in-law," made his face flush crimson with anger. But I didn't care. With my supposed amnesia, everything I did was, in a twisted way, justified. I recovered quickly and returned to work. Clara, once again, wanted me back in the marketing department, but I requested a transfer to the planning department instead. I had always been better suited to writing proposals anyway. I had only volunteered for marketing in the first place to be close to her, a decision that led to me constantly cleaning up her messes. She had grown accustomed to it, leaving all the real work to me. Clara tried to persuade me to stay. "If you go to the planning department, we won't even be on the same floor. I won't be able to see you all the time." "What if I miss you?" I looked at her, my expression puzzled. "Clara, work and romance should be kept separate. Were our boundaries really that blurred before?" Pushing back like this was something I never would have dared to do while my mission was active. And being questioned in this manner was something Clara couldn't afford to argue with now, because of her mission. In the end, I got my way. It was the perfect arrangement. Close enough to be a presence in her life, but distant enough to finally breathe. And I genuinely threw myself into my work. Apparently, Clara had told everyone in the company about my memory loss. Behind my back, people laughed, saying that amnesiacs tend to forget their most humiliating moments. The implication was clear. I must have been so pathetic in my devotion to her that my own mind had erased the memories to protect me. One day, Manager Lee from the planning department mentioned a company dinner that evening. Figuring I had been too aloof lately, I agreed to go. But when I arrived, I quickly realized this was no ordinary company dinner. Sitting across from me was Marco, the same man with mafia ties who had tried to get Clara drunk that one night, the night I had stepped in to protect her. He was surrounded by a few unsavory-looking men with cocky smirks. One look was all it took to know they were trouble. "Manager Lee," I asked, "didn't you say this was a company dinner?" He smiled. "Leo, haven't you been eager to land this proposal and prove yourself? Besides, we all know you can really hold your liquor." There were two possibilities. Either he assumed my amnesia was real and had forgotten the time I drank so much I ended up in the hospital, and he was now trying to mess with me, or he was testing me to see if my memory loss was genuine. Across the table, Marco grinned. "Leo, long time no see. We didn't get to drink our fill last time, did we?" Manager Lee chimed in. "Our Leo here had a car accident and hit his head. Lost some memories. President Bai, don't take it personally." Marco laughed. "Well, that explains it. Leo, we used to be good friends and now you don't even recognize your old buddy? Come on, drink 3 penalty shots to make up for it." I closed my eyes, steadying myself, then forced a smile and downed 3 glasses in quick succession. I then said I wasn't feeling well and needed to use the restroom. But as I stood up, Marco gave his men a look, and a few of them followed me out. Escape was no longer an option. I headed into the restroom, but 2 of his men stood guard at the door. Calling the police at this point would be useless. The only person who could possibly understand the predicament I was in was Clara. I sent her a quick message. But just as it went through, I received a reply. "I'm working with your wife." Before I could even process what that meant, Manager Lee and his cronies stormed into the bathroom and dragged me back to the private room. Marco dropped all pretense. "I've hated your guts for a long time," he sneered. "What kind of useless loser dares to interfere with my plans? Acting all high and mighty, are you? Love playing the hero and drinking for others? Fine. This time, I'll make sure you drink until you drop." He had 2 of his men pin me down and started pouring alcohol down my throat. It was that classic nightmare scenario screaming into a void where no one could hear you. Until the rage finally boiled over, I grabbed a beer bottle from the table and smashed it over the head of the man next to me. Glass shattered. In the same fluid motion, I swiped the broken bottle across Manager Lee's wrist. They all froze for a split second. It was all the time I needed. I lunged forward, wrapped my arm tightly around Marco's neck, and pressed the jagged bottleneck against his carotid artery. The chaos finally ceased. The police arrived shortly after, and we were all taken to the station. Clara rushed in later, her face pale and her makeup smudged. She immediately saw the blood on my face and opened her mouth to speak, but her voice caught in her throat. Marco was curled up in a corner, receiving medical attention, his previous arrogance replaced by a pathetic-looking demeanor. The police had already confirmed that he had organized an assault and committed intentional injury. As they dug deeper, they even connected him to an old, unsolved case. He was finished. When I walked out of the station, Clara threw herself into my arms, sobbing. "I'm so sorry, babe. I only just saw your message." "Clara," I asked, "where were you before this?" She bit her lip. "At work." I pushed her away and looked at her, my gaze cold. "You mean you were working with Julian? Is that why you didn't get my message?" Right now, I was playing the part of a husband who had just caught his wife cheating. She lowered her eyes. "Leo, we were just working. Julian didn't want to be disturbed, that's all." I let out a bitter laugh. "Clara, don't lie to me. If you were so busy, why was your phone in his hands? And don't tell me you didn't read the entire message." I was clear it was Marco. "He had people after me. I asked you to call the police." I paused, then added, "And what was Julian's response?" "I'm working with your wife. Does that sound normal to you? What did he tell you exactly? Also, I saw you leave the office before I did so, where, precisely, were the 2 of you working overtime alone?" When I turned and walked away, Clara remained frozen in place for a long time. Walking alone down the deserted street, I let out a long, heavy sigh. "Missy," I said, my voice low, "do you think I'm pathetic, being treated like a damn dog all these years?" Even now, when her life literally depends on marrying me, she still... I cut myself off, afraid the system might misunderstand my feelings. I'm not jealous, I clarified. I feel useless. Like nobody has ever really cared about me. Ever since my parents passed away, that feeling had been a constant companion. Then, suddenly, Missy's voice came through. Go to the alleyway up ahead! What is it? I asked, confused, but I followed her instruction. Do you see the white cat? She asked. I crouched down. Yeah, I see it. The cat wasn't scared at all. It just stood there, calmly observing me. Missy's voice softened. Go ahead and hold it. The white cat was incredibly gentle. When I picked it up, it didn't resist in the slightest. It let me pet it and cradle it in my arms, and the softness of its fur soothed a raw, aching part of my chest. After playing with the cat for a while, a thought struck me. Missy, this cat isn't you, is it? She was silent for a moment before finally responding. Missy could only inhabit an animal's body for a short period, but she stayed with me that night as I rushed home in a taxi. Just before I got out of the car, the white cat licked my palm, then leaped gracefully onto a nearby wall and vanished into the darkness. The next day, I submitted my resignation to HR for the second time. Of course, Clara came to stop me. Her survival depended on it. I looked her directly in the eyes and said plainly, We're breaking up. Clara grabbed my sleeve. Leo, don't talk nonsense. Breaking up is not an option. I pried her hand away. Miss Lou, aren't you the one who's talking nonsense? I pulled out my phone and showed her the news article about her engagement to Julian. Seriously, Miss Lou, no wonder so many people have had a problem with me lately. It turns out you're already engaged to someone else. What is it with you two? Do you have some kind of twisted fetish for married couples? Given my supposed memory loss, this accusation was perfectly reasonable. Even Clara couldn't come up with an immediate rebuttal. I went straight to Lou Corporation's biggest competitor and accepted a new job without a shred of guilt. The truth was, my skills had always been more than good enough to shine in this industry. When I found out a potential client was an avid golfer, I grabbed my bag and headed straight for the course. I didn't hold back. I chose the semi-pro blue tee and, on my first swing, hit a drive over 280 yards. Everyone was stunned. The client immediately showed interest and even challenged me to a match with a wager. Of course, I wasn't interested in gambling with money. Instead, I proposed that if I won, I would earn a fair opportunity to bid for their future projects. I won. Somehow, a video of my game was uploaded online and instantly sparked a heated discussion. It was only after seeing the news that Clara contacted me. Leo, she said, I didn't even know you could play golf. I was busy scheduling a meeting and didn't have time for a lengthy conversation. Miss Lou, I said, I'm capable of a lot more than you think. And for the record, I played golf long before I ever met you. Even a fallen heir was still, at one point, an heir. It's just that she had never cared enough to learn anything about my past. Miss Lou, if there's nothing else, I need to hang up now. Then, with a deliberately heavy sigh, I added, I'm at Kim Corporation now. I think it's best if we keep our distance. When I missed my parents, I would sometimes go to a bar for a quiet drink. And if the mood struck, I'd even get up on stage and borrow the microphone from the house singer for a song or two. Clara saw a video someone posted of me singing and sent me an aggrieved message. Leo, you've never sung for me. She wasn't used to me acting as if the world didn't revolve around her. Especially now that my career was taking off, and I was frequently seen with attractive women. She came to confront me directly. Leo, do you not love me anymore? Some words, when said too often, lose all their meaning. I love you. I had said that phrase countless times over the past 3 years. She had always accepted it but never truly reciprocated. This time, I just smiled. Miss Lou, although you claim we're a couple, you know that I've lost my memory. To be honest, based on how I feel right now, I honestly can't imagine what I ever saw in you. I paused. And one more thing, Miss Lou. From now on, let's rely on our own merits. Not only could I play golf, but I could also stand on a stage and command a room. Once again, I found myself standing opposite Clara, this time in a competitive pitch between our two companies. I had worked tirelessly on the proposal for Kim Corporation, while she and Julian seemed to be there merely for appearances. This time, I successfully landed a multi-million-dollar deal for my company. Afterward, as the CEOs of the two companies were exchanging pleasantries, I caught Clara stealing glances at me from the corner of my eye. Julian's face looked like he had just swallowed a lemon. When it was over, Clara stopped me. "Leo, can we talk?" Julian stood beside her, his frustration palpable but unspoken. I gladly agreed. It was the first time I had ever heard Clara say to me, "Leo, I feel like there's something different about you." The truth was, nothing had changed about me. I had just stopped pretending to like her. I looked at her, a half-joking smile on my face. "Maybe I've just gotten more confident lately," but she answered with complete seriousness. "You really have become more confident." As if she were afraid I wouldn't believe her, she added, "I didn't even know you were this good at putting together proposals." What a joke. Clara had a real talent for self-deception. Back then, I was the one who wrote all of her proposals, but because she was the one presenting them, she had somehow convinced herself that the brilliance was all her own. I smiled and asked, "Then it seems you never really understood me at all. If you thought I was so incompetent before, why were you so determined to keep me around?" She shook her head. "That's not it." Suddenly, as if grasping for a reason, she added in a flustered voice, "Leo, I really do like you." I looked at her and continued, my voice calm. "Miss Lou, I can't even remember ever liking you." Then, with complete disdain, I added, "Besides, I have zero interest in being a part of whatever bizarre role-playing fantasy you and your fiancé have going on." I turned to leave, giving her no chance to respond. But just as I took a step, she grabbed my arm. Her voice trembled as she said, "Leo, if I can't be with you, I'll die." I shook her hand off my arm. "Miss Lou, don't joke about things like that. Dying? You'll live a long, long life. After all, bad weeds tend to grow tall." I continued, "Also, I have a girlfriend now. It's Isabel, the woman you met before. I'd appreciate it if you didn't bother us anymore." Before leaving that city, I had given Isabel my contact information. She seemed genuinely interested in me, but I had made it clear from the beginning that I was just using her as a shield. Walking out of the building, I felt a wave of conflicting emotions. I took a leave from work, telling my boss I wasn't feeling well, and then found myself crouching by the roadside, watching a stray cat. "Missy," I asked, "can you turn into this cat?" Her voice sounded confused. "Technically, yes. But what are you planning?" "I just want a hug," I replied. 3 years without a partner, and now I had sunk to the point of seeking comfort from small animals. Soon, the cat slowly approached and leaned against me, its whole body pressing gently into mine. If I weren't so wary of what diseases a stray might carry, I would have held it for much longer. I spoke sincerely, my voice barely a whisper. "These past 3 years, thank you. At least you've always been with me." I kept talking to her for a long time. She was the perfect listener, quiet and patient. Suddenly, a child's voice cut through the moment. "Mom, I caught a cat thief." Startled, I looked up to see a young boy standing in front of me. "Mister, why are you stealing my cat?" he demanded. My hand froze in mid-pet. "Sorry," I said. "I thought it was a stray." "You are a cat thief," the kid yelled, refusing to be calmed even when his parent came over. I quickly put the cat down and handed it back, but the little cat trotted up to the boy and immediately started mock-digging at him as if he were a litter box. Missy's move stunned me. The kid cried even louder. While I was busy trying to help the parent calm the child down, a familiar voice called out from behind me. "Leo, I broke off the engagement with Julian." The engagement between the Liu and Ito families had been a grand affair, and its dissolution was now an even bigger public spectacle. Clara cried on camera, claiming that everything was her fault, that she had mistaken youthful infatuation for true love. Between the lines, she vaguely hinted that she had been deceived by a scoundrel, stopping just short of naming me as the one she truly loved. As I watched the woman on the screen, her tears like glistening pearls, I suddenly felt she wasn't worth any of it. "Missy," I said, "I finally understand why I'm so upset. It's not because I chased someone for 3 years and failed to win her over. It's because I chased this kind of person for 3 years. Even knowing that her actions were driven purely by the instinct to survive, the realization soured in my stomach. After work, I was running a hot bath at home when a knock came at the door. Clara had shown up uninvited. Sitting on the couch, I pinched the bridge of my nose. Weren't you the one who said we needed to talk? Why are you just sitting there in silence? After a long pause, she bit her lip. Leo, I've broken off the engagement. Can we start over now? I almost couldn't stop myself from laughing. Miss Lou, I don't understand what you mean. I took out my phone and showed her a photo of Isabel. I told you, I have a girlfriend now. I had deliberately asked Isabel to send me some flashy, provocative photos, and just as I'd expected, they infuriated Clara. She suddenly pulled a small dagger from her bag and charged at me, pointing the blade in my direction. Leo, you can only love me, she screamed hysterically. Why are you loving someone else? She had completely lost her mind. Leo, that Isabel is not a good person at all. Do you even know what kind of job she has? Don't you feel dirty being with her? So, she had even investigated Isabel. Put the knife down first, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. The provocative photos seemed to have pushed her over the edge. She took off her coat, revealing a thin camisole underneath. Leo, you'd have to be blind to fall for someone like Isabel. Look at me. Aren't I beautiful? What does she have that I don't? Beautiful, my ass. I seized the opportunity while she was distracted and bolted. In a panic, my only option was to run into the bathroom. I looked around frantically for some kind of weapon but found nothing. My mind was a chaotic mess. Desperate, I called out to the system. System, do you have anything I can use? Sorry, host, I cannot interfere, she replied, her own voice sounding a little panicked. She even tried to materialize herself, to become something tangible, but she couldn't possess a human body. I got it, I sighed. Outside the door, Clara started crying and apologizing. After knocking for a while, she fell silent. To be honest, the first time I heard the system's voice in my head, I was terrified. But now, she was the only thing keeping me grounded. I figured that even if Clara killed me, she wouldn't be able to live with herself. Unless she lost control completely, I wasn't in any real danger. Once I came to that realization, I reassured the system. I'm fine, don't worry. I continued to run water into the bathtub. When Clara was a child, she had been pushed into a pond by jealous classmates. Ever since then, she'd had a crippling fear of water. I filled the tub to the brim and opened the door. Clara was squatting on the floor outside. The moment she saw the door open, she stood up, looking a bit calmer. I'm sorry, Leo. I lost control earlier. That's what she said, but the knife in her hand was still pointed at me. Then give me the knife first, I said. She looked up at me, continuing as if she hadn't heard. Leo, I always thought I didn't like you. I hated how you were always chasing me. I hated how, no matter how badly I treated you, you'd always come back to try and win me over. But then one day, you just stopped. And suddenly, I panicked. Her voice was low and intense. I thought maybe I didn't hate you that much after all. Maybe I even missed you a little. I was speechless. If this wasn't a sign of mental illness, I didn't know what was. What I'm saying is true, she insisted. You might not believe me, but I was bound to a system. I didn't expect her to admit something like that. I stared at her, shocked. She gave a self-mocking laugh. You don't believe it either, right? Even I don't believe it myself. What system? I asked. What kind of nonsense are you talking about? Missy's voice chimed in just in time. Host, please do not question the system's existence. I could only apologize 1,000 times silently in my heart. It's true, Clara said again. Right when I got engaged, this voice suddenly appeared in my head. It said it was a system. And what does this system do? I asked. She looked me straight in the eye. It told me to get engaged to my one true lover, I would die. So this is why you broke up with Julian? I asked, only cold sarcasm remaining in my heart. It told you to find your true love, and you're saying Julian, isn't it? She nodded. Yes, the system told me he's not my true love. What kind of ridiculous system gives you a mission and the answer in advance? What was this, an open book exam? So you're saying this system told you that I am your true love? I asked. That's right, she replied. Seeing the disbelief on my face, she added, I didn't believe it at first either. But now, I have no choice but to believe it. She kept moving closer, closing the space between us. Leo, I've truly fallen for you now. We were meant to be together. Can we please be together? You don't want me to die, do you? Honestly, I felt nauseated. I stepped back, trying to calm her down. This so-called system. Are you sure you're not just experiencing some kind of mental issue? Couldn't it be auditory hallucinations? She paused, then changed her tactic. Leo, everything you did for me before I saw all of it. I just hope we can give each other a chance. This made me even more puzzled. Let's ignore the fact that I supposedly have amnesia. According to you, you noticed everything I did for you back then. So why did you choose Julian over me? She didn't look happy with that question. Leo, don't even think about leaving me. I'm moving in here from now on. So, I asked suddenly, how about we take a shower together? Clara looked completely dumbfounded, but she clearly thought I was after her body. I controlled the distance between us as I pulled her into the bathroom. She looked at me warily, then frowned as she saw the bathtub filled to the brim with water. She hesitated, but I wrapped my arms around her. What? Having second thoughts? Didn't you say you liked me? She frowned slightly. If this means you'll marry me? I smiled and took the knife from her hand. Then kiss me. Obediently, she stood on her tiptoes and kissed me, completely off guard. In the next second, I shoved her hard, sweeping her legs out from under her at the same time. She fell straight into the bathtub. The moment her head went under, she began to panic. I held her head down, forcing her to hold her breath for a few seconds before yanking her up by the hair. She gasped violently, gulping for air. Clara, I said, my voice dangerously low, this is a one-time warning. If you ever mess with me again, I will kill you. Clara panicked and fled. I picked up my phone and called Isabel, telling her I had something important to discuss. Then wait for me, okay? She replied. I'll be right over. When Isabel arrived, she was clearly in a rush. Her hair was a mess, and her coat wasn't even on properly. Did you have a falling out with Clara? She asked. Clara's public statement had caused quite a stir, so she must have heard about it. I smiled. I was never on good terms with her in the first place, so what's there to fall out over? She hesitated. Brother Chen, actually, Clara isn't that bad. Even though she was engaged, she never actually got married. And now she's so in love with you. Are you really not going to consider her? What? I replied. Didn't you tell me before that I should be considering you? She pouted. I would love to be with Leo, but Leo doesn't want me. She sounded so pitiful that any other man probably would have fallen for it. I reached out and touched her face, and she gave me a sweet smile. But I just brushed my thumb past her lips. Next time you say something like that, at least fix your makeup. The lipstick on her lips was smudged, a clear sign she had been kissing someone before she arrived. She blinked. Leo, if we get together, I promise I'll treat you really well. Yeah, right, I replied. If I got with you, wouldn't that just mean getting cheated on even more often? I laughed. Right now I'm just not interested in women. Suddenly, an idea came to mind. Come with me to do something. What is it? She asked. Buy a cat, I said. She looked curious. Why are you buying a cat all of a sudden? To keep me company and talk to him quietly, I replied. Then I heard Missy's voice in my head. Host, you're not thinking of doing something weird with me, are you? Action speaks louder than words. If I was going to do this, I was going to do it right. I went out and bought a fat orange tabby. But when I called out to Missy through the cat, her voice came back in my head. Too fat. Don't even think about it. I tried to reason with her, pointing out the orange cat's gentle personality, but just then, some breaking news came through on my phone. My entire background had been dug up and exposed online. To be honest, I had never talked about being an orphan. Back then, my father was accused of embezzling company funds and defaulting on employee wages. Crushed by the weight of public opinion, he ended his life by jumping off a building. My mother sold everything we had to compensate the workers and then followed him in death. Her method was incredibly tragic. She told me we were going on a trip to relax. She bought me new clothes and my favorite fried chicken. While I was sitting in the car, eating quietly, she looked at me and said, Leo, you're such a good boy. But I also faintly heard her whisper, Leo, I'm sorry. I tried my hardest not to show my fear, but she drove faster and faster, determined to die. Right before we were about to hit something, she swerved the wheel slightly. The guardrail pierced through her body. With her fading breath, she told me, Leo, remember your dad didn't embezzle the money. When I was rescued, I was in such a state of panic that the world felt utterly ridiculous. Why had she told me that? What was a kid supposed to do with that information? The internet was flooded with posts calling my parents scammers and saying I must be rotten to the core. I became a pariah, someone everyone wanted to crush. They say online hate can kill, and sure enough, the internet was filled with messages telling me to go die. Some even spread rumors that karma had caught up with me, that I had been fired from my job, and that my girlfriend had run off with someone else. It was then that Clara took the initiative to call me. Leo, she said earnestly, I told you a long time ago your girlfriend is no good. Come back, okay? I don't care about your past. Sometimes, I think I'm not a good person either. When she said that, all I felt was the urge to laugh. She must have come to me reluctantly, purely for the sake of her own survival. After all, I had found out that her breakup with Julian wasn't so final. There were even recent photos of them hugging. The gossip columns could catch what the financial news couldn't. But I had figured it out. This was all normal. Love is a fickle thing. If you force it, it never tastes sweet. So, even when I heard her words or saw the photos of them together, I felt nothing. Miss Lou, there's no need for all of this, I said, glancing out the window where the sunlight was just right. Isabel isn't as awful as you think. And besides, I believe in my father. My past isn't something to be ashamed of. Miss Lou, there's no need to force yourself like this. Clara was still trying to explain, saying that even if Isabel hadn't dumped me yet, it was only a matter of time. That the only reason she hadn't left me was because she still saw some value in using me. I replied with a meaningful smile. Miss Lou, I doubt she's the only one who thinks I'm still useful, is she? Clara snapped back, annoyed. Leo, just keep being stubborn. Willow, I said, her real name slipping out. I never understood what you meant about the system before. But 2 days ago, something strange happened. I suddenly got a system too. Just as I said this, the orange tabby looked up at me. I patted her on the head. Go play over there, Daddy will feed you in a minute. The system responded in my head. Host, I strongly suspect you're taking advantage of me. The silence from Clara on the other end of the line made me chuckle. You know what? I said. That day, a system told me it had bound itself to me, and only then did I realize you weren't lying. Right? Clara seemed relieved. Leo, I told you I really do like you, and at a time like this, with all this public pressure, you should trust me. Clara. I smiled. Please let me finish. The system that bonded with me is called the lie detection system, and it just told me that everything you just said was a lie. Clara didn't believe she had been exposed. She was still trying to test me, to figure me out. She gave a cold laugh. What kind of joke is this, Leo? There can't be that many systems. I believe she truly meant that when she said it. When it talks to me, I said, half lying and half telling the truth, it's like someone whispering directly into my ear, but no one else can hear it. It came with a mission, too. My system told me that if the people around me keep lying to me, I'll just get more and more unlucky. So, Clara, it's better if we keep some distance between us. I thought of the recent news. And another thing, I find it strange. How did my parents' story get leaked in the first place? I even suspected it had something to do with her or Julian. Leo, she said, I think. It's because I confessed to you recently. That's probably what made people start digging into your background. I'm sorry. The truth came out quickly. I don't know what kind of pressure Julian was under, but he sent me a message directly apologizing. He admitted that he was the one who had hired someone to investigate me and had posted everything online. What followed was Clara pleading with me on Julian's behalf. Julian only did it because he loved me too much, she said. So, because the two of you are in love, that gives you the right to use someone else's past as a stepping stone? I asked. The internet was flooded with posts saying I wasn't good enough for Clara. It gave me the perfect excuse to watch the helpless expression on her face. But maybe the netizens are right, I said. Maybe I really don't deserve you. No, please, let me explain, Clara said. I know you must have seen those photos of me that day. But the truth is, I met up with Julian because I wanted to end things for good. That hug was our final goodbye. I swear, I hadn't been in contact with him one-on-one for a long time. He's already resigned and gone to work at another company. The system suddenly chimed in. Everything she just said is true. I held back my curiosity and still sent Clara away. As she walked out the door, she kept turning back, unwilling to leave, repeating, I can wait for you. I don't care what others say about you. How do you know she's telling the truth? I asked the system. Can you really detect lies? She answered proudly. I asked. I told her I'm a royal princess of the system clan, and then I asked the system on her end. How could it not answer me? I had no other words to describe how great it felt to have that kind of power. So you're saying Clara has really fallen for me? I honestly didn't believe it at all. Let's put it this way. I can only confirm that what she said just now was true, she replied. Just then, I saw a new message pop up on my phone. I smiled and said to the system, see, there are things even your kind doesn't know. Clara told plenty of truths, but not the whole truth. That's when someone knocked on the door. It was Isabel's voice. Leo, let me in, will you? Leo, about the thing you asked me to look into. I wanted to tell you in person. She seemed to be in a rush, slightly out of breath. Leo, can you get me a glass of water? I'm seriously exhausted. I went to get some hot water and handed it to her. That's weird. Didn't you take a cab here? You sound like you ran all the way. She pursed her lips. Leo, you really don't know how to appreciate a moment, do you? She drank a few sips of water. Look at me, this gorgeous woman right in front of you, and you're still hung up on Clara? Then, getting playful, she leaned in closer and ran her hand along my neck. If you're not willing to marry me, Leo, that's fine too. I won't even make you take responsibility. She even started to lift the edge of her skirt slightly. Look at this. But in the very next second, Big Orange, the tabby, suddenly charged over. Just as she lifted her skirt, it raised a paw and smacked her hard. Big Orange bared its teeth and claws, looking fierce. Isabel was completely stunned. Isabel looked completely taken aback. What the hell? Isn't this the cat we bought together, Leo? How come it doesn't recognize me after just a few days? She covered her face and sat back down on the couch, pointing a timid finger at the cat before pulling her hand back. That slap actually hurt, you damn orange fatty. The orange tabby jumped back into my arms and rubbed against me affectionately. I stroked her head. I could tell it had to be her. Every time Missy possessed the cat, it would stop meowing entirely. I didn't say anything out loud, finding the whole situation quite amusing. She remained silent, probably thinking I hadn't noticed. So, I switched into full-on cat petting mode, rubbing her all over. The big orange tabby was obedient and timid, as if to say, I won't move if you don't move. Go ahead, talk, I said to Isabel. She looked at the cat, then decided to skip the chatter and get straight to the point. The account that exposed your personal info really is a sock puppet account Julian created. But here's the weird part, it was a new account he made just before everything happened. I nodded. Makes sense. You can't exactly do this kind of thing from your main account. Sure, she said. But my friend hacked into Clara's devices. All of your information was already stored on her laptop. Exactly one day before the sock puppet account was created. Oh, and the location where that account was created? It was, indeed, from Julian's home. I couldn't help but imagine the most likely scenario. Clara had known about everything from the beginning. She had left the information somewhere Julian could easily find it, ensuring he would be the one to leak it. That way, she wouldn't be the one technically doing anything, and she could still use the fallout to manipulate me into coming back to her. Leo, Isabel said, how could that woman be so vicious? Unlike me, I just care about you. She leaned closer again, but Big Orange suddenly stood up, and Isabel backed off, sitting down again with a frown. Wait, why does this cat feel so off? Yeah, something really was off. The cat even licked my palm. All right, it's not that big a deal, I said. I was genuinely grateful for this girl. We were just passing strangers, but she had helped me a lot. If only she didn't always talk like such a pretentious coquette. But I do have something major, she said, pointing at the cat. Don't glare at me. I'm talking to your owner about something important. She unlocked her phone and handed it to me. Forget it. Leo, you take a look yourself. I'm scared it'll bite me. I took the phone. A middle-aged man's face appeared on the screen, completely unfamiliar. Who's this? I asked. A scammer who just got arrested, she said simply. Her words felt like they were in a language I suddenly couldn't understand. It turned out everything my mother had said was true. The money from my father's company had been embezzled by his business partner. He had committed the crime, but my parents had paid for it with their lives. A wave of dizziness washed over me. The edges of my vision went dark, shrinking to the size of a needlepoint before exploding into a shower of stardust. I was gasping for air, my chest heaving violently, my whole body trembling uncontrollably. And in the very next second, I heard a thump. Isabel had collapsed onto the floor. She didn't move. I panicked and reached out to check if she was still breathing. The next second, her eyes opened. "Are you okay?" I asked. She sat up, and a voice echoed in my head. "It's me." The earlier shock had been overwhelming, but this new development was one of pure, unadulterated joy. "Are you the system, Missy?" I asked. She nodded, her brows furrowed as if she couldn't speak. I grabbed her hand excitedly, but she immediately yelped and pulled it away. "Does it hurt?" I asked. I could see the strain she was in. She shook her head. "No, it's not that painful." She still couldn't use Isabel's body to speak. Her voice was coming directly into my mind. Right after that, I felt Heron Isabel's form come forward and hug me. Naturally, I didn't refuse. "Does it hurt?" I asked again. I was sure she was in pain, even though she was doing her best to hide it. She didn't answer my question, but suddenly said, "Don't feel bad anymore." I couldn't promise that, but I still answered obediently. "Okay." Then something occurred to me. I looked at her. "Weren't you not allowed to possess a human body?" "I am the princess of the System clan," she said. "I can always find a way." Missy really did make it sound like no big deal. I smiled. "I'm already feeling much better. Do you want to change back now?" "What? You hate me that much?" she replied. "It's my first time appearing like this, and you're already trying to get rid of me?" "You know that's not what I mean," I said, but I decided to be honest. "To be frank, I did hate you at first." I gently took her fingertip, making sure the contact was minimal. Seeing her like this, in a human form, was strange and unfamiliar. "I'm telling you this, so don't get mad, but I did really hate the system. If it weren't for the mission, I wouldn't have forced myself to grovel in front of a woman, begging for her favor even when she humiliated and toyed with me, acting like I had zero dignity. Honestly, that feeling of having my self-respect trampled was awful. For 3 years, I couldn't even tell if I really liked her or if I was just trying to complete the task. But I also know that if it weren't for this mission, I'd probably be half dead by now, a ghost of a person with no hope left. But still, I'm really glad you were my system." She once again played the role of a good listener. Looking at this person sitting beside me was a strange feeling, both unreal and completely real. I talked fast, saying everything that came to mind, as if I couldn't stop. I was worried our time was running out. So I let out a yawn and said, "I'm feeling sleepy a bit early tonight. I think I'll nap for a while. You should go back soon too." It wasn't really nap time, but I could tell she was in pain. Her forehead was drenched in sweat. "Okay," she replied, "but I want to watch you fall asleep. Once you're out, I'll go back." She nodded and said nothing else. I looked at her a few more times, smiled and asked, "Missy, what do you really look like?" "Me?" she replied. "Probably like a fat orange tabby, chubby and lazy." I didn't ask any more questions. Maybe because my emotions had been so stirred up earlier, a strange peace now settled over me, and I fell asleep quickly. When I woke up again, Isabel was still lying on the couch, fast asleep. I looked around the room and suddenly saw a painting on the table that hadn't been there before. It was a portrait of a beautiful, unfamiliar woman. As I stared at it, I suddenly burst out laughing. "Such a lie," I murmured to myself. "Not even a little bit fat, and seriously good-looking." Next to the painting, on a sheet of paper, a single line of writing had been left behind. "Let me grant you one last wish." When Isabel woke up, she was completely confused. One moment she was saying, "Why do I feel like I just ran a marathon? I'm so tired." The next, she was asking, "Did you drug me or something? How else would I just pass out like that?" Then she complained, "My head kinda hurts." I had to come up with an excuse. "You just seemed super tired. You fell asleep in seconds and didn't even respond when I tried to wake you." "And how do you know I wasn't sick?" she asked. I hesitated, then pulled another excuse out of thin air. "Because you drooled in your sleep." She didn't seem to care much. She squinted at me. "No way. But still, Leo, I was totally asleep and you didn't even try anything? There's gotta be something wrong with your libido." I was speechless. Soon, the full truth behind my father's old case came out. The same netizens who had been relentlessly attacking me suddenly hit the brakes, acting like it was no big deal, even tossing in comments like, well, his parents did kill themselves out of guilt. Can't blame us for assuming the worst. I couldn't care less about them, because Missy had vanished. No matter how I called for her, she never appeared again. As for Clara, I watched her chase after me again and again, using every trick in the book. One time, she was crying and begging me not to be so heartless, asking me to consider her feelings. So I asked her, "Do you hate your system?" She couldn't answer, but I said it clearly, "I hate mine." She sensed something was off. "Leo, what system are you talking about?" she asked. I smiled. "Clara, doesn't it feel like hell being bound to a romance targeting system?" She panicked suddenly. "What are you talking about?" Clearly, she realized something was wrong. But I ignored her and kept going. "I used to feel the same way, like I'd rather be dead. You accepted everything I gave you without guilt. You enjoyed how I treated you. You didn't reject me, but you didn't accept me either. You kept me hanging, letting me circle around you like a dog. Every time I found a little hope, you'd douse me in cold water. When I turned to leave, you gave me just enough warmth to drag me back in. You said you'd give me a chance, you wanted to see how I performed. So you had me run errands, do this and that. And when I didn't meet your expectations, you'd blow up at me and call it setting boundaries. I get it. The attitude you wanted was complete submission. But even when I gave you everything, you still found fault. And on the day of our agreement, you brought Julian just to humiliate me. Clara, when you humiliated me, did you ever once consider how I felt?" I paused. "Honestly, I've never been afraid of death." Then, with all the malice I could muster, I added, "You lied and pretended to be my wife, fine, but dragging my parents' tragedy into the public eye. Clara, how shameless can you be?" "I'm sorry," she choked out. "I just wanted to be with you so badly. Please, I'm begging you, give me one more chance." "Of course, Clara," I said. "It all depends on your performance. Clara, all I'm asking for is an attitude." From the moment I wrote that wish on that piece of paper, I had already made up my mind. I wouldn't be a good person. And back then I didn't want to die either. Missy still didn't show up. I just carefully folded the painting she left behind and placed it in my drawer. Ironically, without the system's constraints, I ended up seeing more of Clara than ever. When I sat in front of my parents' graves, talking to them, she sat beside me and kept me company. When I went to bars to drown my sorrows, she worried about my stomach and brought me home to make soup. When I got off work, she would be waiting downstairs with a homemade bento box. Julian came to see me again, but before he could even say a word, Clara drove him away. Even when I made it clear that I was rejecting her, she still insisted that she really loved me. I told her how disgusted I was by everything she'd done, and she actually went out and publicly apologized, admitting everything had been her doing. She said she was willing to accept all the consequences, as long as I could forgive her, as long as I would look at her again. Later, wherever I went, she followed. Every demand I made, she accepted. Every attitude I asked for, she gave. And then she got into a car accident trying to save me. The day I proposed to Clara, she put the ring on with tears streaming down her face. I didn't know if she was happy I was finally willing to marry her or if it was because she felt the mission was about to be completed. But I've never thought of myself as a good person. The one I always wanted to see was someone else. So, on the day of our engagement, the final day of the mission, I ran away. I went up to that same rooftop again and said to the empty air, "Missy, if you still don't show up, I'm jumping." As expected, threats didn't work. I gave a helpless smile. "Forget it, I won't lie to you anymore." I let out a long sigh. "I'll live a good life. After all, this was the second chance you gave me, Missy. I remember everything now. Back when the car accident happened, someone had whispered quietly in my ear, 'Do you want to keep living?'